Have you ever tried to share an idea with someone only to fail to get them to change their mind about it? Maybe you had a suggestion that could really help your friend in her dating life, or a new approach you really wanted your team to try at work. Or perhaps you were trying to get your parents to exercise more and get in better shape. Whatever the situation, getting people to pay attention to your ideas can be a real challenge. As the CEO of Write It Great, an elite ghostwriting firm that helps experts and thought leaders package their ideas into publishable books, I've seen firsthand how even the most groundbreaking ideas can fall flat if they aren't communicated in just the right way. And what I found is the first hurdle in getting someone to change their thinking is to get them to actually listen to you in the first place. How do you capture people's attention and get them to deeply focus on your words? That's where the psychology of attention comes in. By understanding how the human brain decides what to focus on, we can craft messages that are impossible to ignore. To understand why it's so hard to get people to pay attention to our ideas, let's look at a real world example of where a well intentioned campaign fell flat. In the 1980s, the US government launched a massive anti drug campaign called Just Say No. It enlisted everyone from celebrities to politicians to help spread the message. On the surface, it seemed like a slam dunk. I mean, drugs are bad, right? So telling kids to avoid them, that should totally work. But despite all the star power and the massive resources behind it, the campaign was a flop. In fact, teen drug use actually increased during the years it ran. So what went wrong? The problem was relevance. The just say no message didn't align with the realities and motivations of most teenagers. It didn't address the complex social, emotional, and environmental factors that lead to teen drug use. In other words, it failed to make the message feel personally meaningful to its target audience. The Just Say No campaign is a powerful reminder that even the most important messages can fall on deaf ears if they don't feel relevant. What makes an idea feel relevant and worth paying attention to? It comes down to three psychological principles. First, it needs to align with your existing goals and motivations. We're naturally drawn to information that we think can help us get what we want. Second, the idea should feel novel and surprising in some way. Our brains are wired to perk up and notice when we encounter something new and unexpected. And third, we're more likely to see an idea as important if we have social proof that others, especially people similar to us, are already paying attention to it. When you can tap into these three factors, goal alignment, novelty, and social proof, you create kind of a relevance trifecta that makes your message almost impossible to ignore. Let's dive into the first factor, goal alignment, and look at why it's so critical for capturing attention. To grab people's attention with an idea, we need to frame it in a way that aligns with their existing goals. And there are some fascinating ways to do this. One of the key theories in this area is regulatory focus theory, developed by Tory Higgins. In one experiment, Higgins and his colleagues told participants about a new after-school program. They framed it in one of two ways. They either said it was to achieve good academic skills or to avoid falling behind academically. It turns out people were more engaged when the message matched their own personal style. The go-getters really preferred the achieve framing, while the better safe than sorry crowd vibed more with the avoid angle. In other words, if you try to sell somebody something they don't already want, it's gonna be hard. This has huge implications for how we share ideas. If you want to capture someone's attention, you need to frame your message in a way that aligns with their existing goals and motivations. Imagine you're a high school history teacher and you're trying to get your students excited about learning the Constitution. You could lecture them about the importance of civic knowledge, but for most students, that message isn't going to resonate. That's because it doesn't align with their immediate goals and motivations. Most teenagers aren't lying awake at night worrying about their understanding of the branches of government. They're focused on things like fitting in with their peers, preparing for college, and figuring out their identity. If you want to make the Constitution feel relevant to them, you need to connect it to their existing concerns. You might create a trivia competition and give the winner elevated status and privileges in the classroom all week, or even just frame this knowledge as a tool they can use to advocate for causes they care about, or as essential for getting into their dream school. By linking your message to your audience's pre-existing goals, you dramatically increase the chances they'll see it as relevant and worth paying attention to. So goal alignment is a powerful attention hack, but it's not the only one. The second key to capturing focus is novelty. Our brains are hardwired to pay special attention to anything that's new, surprising, or different from our everyday experience. It's an evolutionary survival mechanism. By focusing on novel stimuli, our ancestors were better able to spot potential threats and opportunities. Neuroscientist Wolfram Schultz discovered this when he wired monkey brains up to a set of electrodes that could monitor the activity in certain brain regions in real time. Schultz found that dopamine neurons fire like crazy for unexpected rewards. As soon as a reward becomes predictable, our neurons get bored. If we want people to care about our ideas, we have to make it clear that we are saying something new and different from what they have already heard on this topic before. How could you apply this in everyday communication challenges? Let's say you're trying to get your spouse to try a new budgeting app. You could list all of its features, but that's unlikely to get them excited. After all, we all already know about budgeting. We're just not doing it. Instead, try framing the app in terms of what's new and different about it. You might say something like, hey, I know we've tried budgeting before using spreadsheets and it always felt like a chore, but this app is different. It uses AI to automatically track our spending across all our accounts. By emphasizing the unique and different qualities of this new app, you can make the conversation feel fresh and relevant. And this increases the odds that your spouse might be interested. We've covered goal alignment and novelty, two powerful strategies for capturing attention. But there's one more piece to the puzzle: social proof. As social creatures, we are heavily influenced by what we see others doing and valuing, especially others who we see as being similar to ourselves. Psychologist Robert Cialdini proved this with some towels. He put signs in hotel rooms asking people to reuse their towels. When the signs just asked nicely, about 35% of guests complied. But when the sign said that most other guests reuse their towels, compliance jumped to about 50%. Turns out we're all just sheep in human clothing. You can leverage this principle in your own communication. Show your listeners how other people similar to them are already finding value in an idea, and they will be much more likely to pay attention. Here's an example of how this might look. Let's say you're trying to get your team at work to adopt a new project management strategy. You could focus on the features of the system and how it works, but that might not be enough to get people on board. Instead, try leveraging social proof. You might say something like, the marketing department has been using this exact same system for the past 6 months, and they've seen a 20% increase in on-time project completion. The team lead told me it's been a total game changer. By showing that others, especially a group that your team relates to and feels similar to, are already benefiting from the strategy, you make your ideas feel more relevant and worthy of attention. Hey, if it's working for the marketing team, maybe we should consider it too. We've covered 3 keys to making your ideas more relevant and attention-grabbing: align with goals, offer novelty, and leverage social proof. Now, let's see how these principles can work together in a couple of real-world examples. Imagine you're a parent trying to convince your child to adopt better study strategies. You know effective studying is important, but to a kid, it just feels like a boring chore. How can you make the idea of study skills feel more relevant and compelling to them? First, you want to align your message with their existing goals. Maybe they're really focused on hanging out with their friends. Studying more efficiently would give them more time to do that. Next, you want to introduce some novelty. Instead of just telling them to study more, try offering them a book on the latest science-backed learning hacks. Finally, you want to provide some social proof. Maybe point at their favorite athlete or an older cousin who they admire, who credits their success to the skills they learned in school. By weaving together these 3 elements, goal alignment, novelty, and social proof, you've made the idea of studying feel relevant, fresh, and socially validated. Your child is much more likely to pay attention and be open to your suggestions. The strategies we've been talking about don't just apply to one-on-one interaction. They can also be used to capture attention and drive change on a massive scale. What made the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge so viral? The campaign masterfully tapped into all three psychological factors of relevance. It aligned with people's existing desire to make a difference and look good to their friends. It provided a novel way to get involved. Most of us hadn't thought about pouring ice water on our heads to raise money. And by its very nature of people publicly challenging each other, it created massive social proof. The result was a phenomenon that took the world by storm. The campaign raised over $200 million for ALS research, and it completely changed the conversation around the disease. We might not all be starting global movements, but we can all learn from the Ice Bucket Challenge's success. By making our ideas feel relevant, novel, and socially supported, we can dramatically increase the chances that people will pay attention and take action. So there you have it, the secret to making your ideas relevant and impossible to ignore. Whether you're trying to convince one person or influence your entire organization, the principles are the same. Align with your audience's existing goals, offer a novel perspective, and leverage the power of social proof. And relevance is just one of the 4 key factors in creating truly transformative messages. In upcoming videos, we'll be diving into the other 3 elements: breaking down complexity, minimizing counterarguments, and shifting existing beliefs. But for now, I want to challenge you to start looking at your own communication through the lens of relevance. The next time you're trying to get your message across, ask yourself, how can I make this feel not just important, but personally meaningful to my audience? What can I do to make my ideas stand out as new and noteworthy? And how can I show that others are already on board and benefiting from what I have to share? By making relevance a priority, you'll be well on your way to crafting messages that don't just inform or persuade, but truly transform.